Hello everyone, I'm Lisa Weber Curry, Manager of Clinical Services at Ascension Counseling Center. You're watching Ascension Counseling Center's video newsletter, where we talk about the services we offer and how you can benefit from them. Thanks for joining us. Suzanne Hamilton, Director at Ascension Counseling Center, is with us, and we'll discuss how to achieve equality in relationships, recognizing controlling behavior, and the options you have if you find yourself in an abusive relationship. Please stay with us for the next half hour or so. Our newsletter begins right after this message.
Ascension Parish, a parish steeped in tradition. It's a place where generations of families have continued to enjoy a lifestyle that centers on community living and community celebration. It's a place where we care about each other and we care about ourselves. For more than 50 years, the Ascension Counseling Center has continued the tradition of helping individuals and families change behaviors and change lives. The Ascension Counseling Center.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, Lisa.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. We're back for another episode of our monthly video newsletter, and today's topic we're going to talk about equality in relationships.
Yes, as you know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and it always makes us think about relationships and how they're going. And so today we're actually going to talk about relationships and three different types of abuse. Okay. One is physical, one is social, and one is mental.
Okay.
And what we hope to do as for people is to have you take a look at your own relationships and to see where you fall within this. And actually we're going to talk about control and power and equality kind of as a continuum, like a volume button on a stereo.
Okay.
It can go really low or it can go really high. Okay. And so all of our relationships are going to be somewhere in that volume. And so we want to accomplish a few things today. We want to help you look at your relationship and see where you are in that volume control, whether your relationship is really high in power and control and how that affects you, and then offer some options on how that can be changed.
Okay. We got a good topic for today.
We do.
Let's dig right in. So talk about the three different types of abuse.
Okay, so the first one that we want to talk about is a physical type of abuse, and that's using intimidation. Okay. And what that means is it's using threatening behaviors, so making someone afraid. And we're talking about men and women and also adults to children. This can happen to children as well.
Okay.
And it can happen women to men and men to women. Okay. But making someone afraid of you by your looks or your gestures or your actions. Okay. And you know, we talk about the look that our parents have. Our mother has the look.
Exactly.
When we say that, everybody knows what we're talking about. So people have the look, and we know what it means. Right. And so it's using the look on your partner or on your child in a way that's threatening to them. Okay. It could be actions or gestures, things such as doing like this, even if you don't hit.
Right. It's just the threat is enough.
Yes, just zip it. I don't want to hear it. You know, those types of gestures can be used to control people. Right. And so we want to be we want people to be aware that those are things that indicate that they don't have the freedom to speak their mind in a relationship. Other ways that somebody can intimidate you is by smashing your things. So when they get angry, if you try to talk to them about something and they get angry, and they might just reach out and whatever's handy, they might just knock it off the table and smash it. Right. Could be a lamp, could be a plate, could be anything, especially your favorite things. Right. Mementos or little things that you've collected. If they pick them up and smash them to make you stop talking, to make you stop expressing yourself. Right. So that would be another way that you would use intimidation on your partner so that your relationship would not be equal.
And you know, I think it's a little People have to really think about that form of abuse in the sense when there's not a physical touch, because like you said, we grew up, our parents gave us a look if we were in the grocery store, buying groceries, and you wander off, they give you that certain look and you come right back right next to mom or dad. So we got used to that look. So now it may be a little challenging for people to first recognize that that's exactly what they're being groomed for, fear, that I am intimidating you by that look. So I think that makes it a little challenging for people to say, oh, I am being abused. It may take them a while.
Yeah, and those are things that are kind of subtle, so you really don't even think about that.
Exactly.
Since we were all raised with the look, we kind of expect the look.
Exactly.
And so looking at those kind of things as intimidation so that you don't speak your mind or don't do what you were going to do is a way of being abusive, having power or control over someone else.
Right.
Another way is destroying their property. So taking mementos that are important, if you have like scrapbooking, or you've saved pictures, or you've saved wedding invitations and they tear that up, or if they destroy their kids' models, or
all the things we value.
Things that we value, and destroying those. And it's not laying hands on you, but it's very abusive in that respect.
Because I imagine, one would think, okay, if you're destroying the things that I value the most, the material things, then I must be next, especially when you've taken away just about everything that I value. So am I going to be the next person? So.
Yeah, it's very intimidating, and you're going to sit and be quiet the next time if you have something left over that's very precious to you, and you don't want to lose it. So it's another thing is abusing pets instead of abusing the person. So maybe kicking the dog, or hitting the cat, or making them stay outside all night, or refusing to let the dog out to go to the bathroom, and then punishing it when it goes inside the house.
Exactly.
When it had no other choice. So and again, that's another way of intimidating a person, because you love your pets. My cats are
family.
my babies.
Yeah, it's like family to most people.
And so abusing the pets instead of that person is a way to control instead of...
Because it hurts just as much to that person. So
you'd almost rather, anything else than hurting an innocent animal.
Exactly.
And then another one, a more serious one, is displaying weapons. So, this is a hunting state. We all have guns. We don't all have guns. Let me rephrase that.
But people have the choice if they choose to have
those,
one.
And they have guns, or just having one out, or cleaning it while you're saying, I'm so disappointed in you for saying that to me. Having a knife out, or something like that.
Any type of object that can be used to cause physical harm while you're engaging in that conversation of telling them how wrong they are for doing whatever it is that person imagined they did to them is intimidating.
Yes. And so we've talked a little bit about that being like a volume control, going from high to very low. So those are things that indicate power and control over someone else, using intimidation. So let's talk a little bit about what would equality look like on the other end. And that would be, just talking and acting so that the other person feels safe and comfortable to express themselves and to do things. And it doesn't mean that you never get into an argument or that you're always going to agree, but it does mean that you're going to be willing to listen to what the other person has to say without doing all of those other behaviors. So sitting quietly and talking about listening. And you might get angry, but again, couples have to learn how to handle anger and frustration and those types of emotions in their relationships, so that they're not handled in any of the negative ways that we've already talked about.
Because we're all entitled to have those emotions, anger, hurt, whatever our emotions, our feelings are, everybody's entitled to them. It is about us respecting and letting that person have their feelings. It's about us saying to each other, I may not quite get it, what you're saying, but I respect that you have those feelings, and I will listen. I will actively listen to you without trying to coerce you or intimidate you.
Yes, and for the person who's trying to send the message, it's also important for them not to use intimidation or coercion to make the other person listen to what they're saying.
Right.
So it's got to be an open communication between both parties.
Right.
I'm saying what I need to say with respect to you,
Yes.
respect of your feelings and who you are, and I'm listening to what you're saying with respect for you.
Right.
So that becomes a more equal relationship.
And it helps the relationship grow from there.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, so practice non-threatening behavior to be able to avoid the intimidation, the threatening behaviors, and the coercion.
And this is especially true for children because, you know, they don't have the same communication skills that we all adults do. And so they have to struggle a little bit with their, and sometimes they are not going to express themselves well. So parents need to have a little bit of tolerance and understanding and teaching them how to communicate well. And so they learn how to communicate from us, from their parents. And so we do need to look at how we're communicating in the family, everyone with each other, and teach the children how to do that as well.
Exactly, and we have to remember that, you know, kids do what they see us do, not necessarily what we say. So we can keep saying, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't yell at your brother or sister, you shouldn't threaten them, but if they see that same behavior coming out of us, that's what they're going to model. So it starts really young, you're saying. And it's interesting because I saw a kid yesterday in a building, and he was with his mom, and she had 2 other kids, and she was busy texting away, you know, not really paying attention. And so he started to just sing himself a song. He entertained himself, and he would move the chair from one spot to the next. And she snatched him up out of the chair, and he said, "Mom, you're hurting me." And I was so proud of that kid because he was able to say that. But not everybody can do that, so,
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, that's a great example of, you know, and then, of course, we'd want to see that the other person would respect that and stop what they're doing.
And she did. And she turned around and she acknowledged him, so it worked out.
That's
so
great.
It is important that we are able to say those things in a non-threatening environment. So I think that's great. So you also talk about a second form of abuse that sometimes people, it's so subtle, they don't even see it happening until it's much too late. It's using isolation.
Yes, and using isolation is when you control what someone else does, you control who they can see, when they can see them, who they talk to, even what they read or watch on TV, where they go. All of these things are a form of control and manipulation.
Yes.
And those are things that we kind of, they can be very subtle and we don't really see them very much. But limiting outside involvements, not letting them get involved in clubs or activities or at church, or not letting them go and visit relatives or see their parents or their friends, limiting what they do outside of the house and kind of wanting them to stay inside. It's very isolating. It's using isolation to control someone else.
Right, and by the time they realize that, they have lost contact with everybody who is important and significant to them. I mean, it goes, I've heard people talk about, and I've seen, and through counseling, working with clients, you learn how they will say, I don't want you to go to the girls' night out or to the guys' night out. I really want you home with me. I miss you. I love you. I just want you around me all the time. And if you're in need of, you know, really wanting and needing that love, you miss the fact that this is a step toward isolating you from everyone else. And it moves from girls or guys' night out to you can't attend a family's barbecue or a family's get-together, until finally, maybe months later, you realize it's just me in this house and it's not good.
And not getting out. And it can escalate into not being able to speak to anybody, not being able to have a cell phone, not being able to call other people at all, and just being, sometimes I've heard women say they were locked in the house during the day when their spouse is gone. And so it can
windows blacked out. I mean, there's been cases that those things actually happening to women or to men, because it can happen in either case. So
yes, it can happen both ways. And it can happen to our children as well, not allowing them to go out and play with friends or have real friends, or just wanting them to be in the house and have family time all the time. You know, children need to get out and have relationships with other people, and
that's how they develop social skills.
Absolutely. And you know, when all of these types of things happen, the person who's using the power and control can use things like, oh, I'm so jealous, you know, I just love you so much. I just want you to be around all the time. I just love you. Or I can't help that I'm jealous because I love you so much. And so those types of things where it sounds good, but in reality, it's not.
It's very unhealthy in reality.
It's unhealthy. You're absolutely right. And a lot of times with domestic violence, it goes in stages. It starts gradually, and then it builds up. And this is one of the earlier stages, cutting you off from other people so that you don't have anybody else who's close to you that you can go to when things start getting really bad. And so don't isolate yourself. You need to be in contact with other people.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we share with families of victims of domestic violence is they'll say, well, I don't want her to come around as long as she has the perpetrator with her. We know he's abused her. We're having family events. We don't want him around. Well, that's your opportunity to lay eyes on her, to make sure she's okay. Let them come. Let her be there. So at least you have an opportunity to check in with her. You can sneak her in the kitchen and say, hey, girl, what's going on? Let's talk. You're not looking good. So we have to look for ways also to be able to help those who are abused.
Yeah, and not, you know, because isolation can go both ways.
Exactly.
We don't want to know. We think the other person is so great, we don't believe they would do that.
Exactly.
And so we kind of push the victim away because we don't want to hear that. We just don't believe it. And so then she gets more and more isolated.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And I think, you know, sometimes we don't sit and think about that domestic violence also affects the elderly. Because, you know, sometimes people are caregivers to the elderly, they're overwhelmed, and they take it out on the elderly. So we also need to watch out for the elderly. If they're being isolated, if you know this is your good friend and you play bingo together, or you meet at church socials and you haven't seen that person in a while, I think it's important for us to check on them as well, because that can be happening with them.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. We really do have to be careful of anybody just kind of disappearing and us not hearing from them or not seeing from them. We need to be aware that something serious may be going on and check in with them.
Exactly. Okay.
So we talked about the other side, the equality, and that would be allowing the other person to have their own interests and activities, take some classes, supporting their goals in life, let them go out and get a hobby, join a club, join the gardening club, join you know, any kind of activity.
Photography, whatever it is that they're interested in.
Yeah, go back to school if they want to. Support their dreams and their activities and their opinions. And what they're doing is kind of becoming more of a well-rounded person. And that becomes a problem when their partner doesn't want to do that as well.
Exactly.
All right. So it's really the kind of thing that couples can do together, or they can both go out to their separate activities on the same night. If they want to be together, there are ways to get around that.
Right, to support each other in their efforts, their goals, their dreams. Because if you can spend time, if each partner in that relationship is allowed time to grow and explore the things that are important to them, they come back home a lot happier and healthier, and it makes the relationship overall a healthier relationship.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's important. We have to support each other. If you feel like you're not getting that support, it's time to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always counseling. If you feel like you need a mediator in there to help people with these issues, there's always counseling. There's always Ascension Counseling Center.
Yeah, so we've talked about, you've already talked about a couple of times when we've helped people, that people have come in. And that's one of the things that we do. We're a neutral third party that a couple can come and sit down with and get some honest feedback about,
Right.
you know, what's going on in their relationship and help them to communicate. And sometimes we have to build communication skills into the
Exactly.
couple first before we can start working on the issue. So we
Right.
don't just plop you in a room and say talk when we know that you can't do that.
Exactly.
So we will help you to be able to do that, to
Yeah.
express your goals and dreams and hopes for yourself and for your coupleness.
Right. Because at the core of it, it starts with honest, open communication.
Yes.
And we cannot, it's imperative that we don't assume people have the proper communication skills, you know.
Yes.
So we have to teach them that. Okay. So we're moving from the physical, the social, to one of the final stages in abuse. And that's the mental part.
And that's a mental part where the abuser is minimizing, denying, and blaming the victim.
Okay.
And so they might deny that that the abuse didn't happen.
Okay.
No, you're crazy.
Right.
I didn't say that. I didn't hit you. I didn't do what you're accusing me of.
Right.
Or they make light of it. You know, I was just joking around when I said that.
Yeah. And you just misinterpreted.
You just misunderstood.
Right.
Yeah, I had my gun. I was cleaning my gun, but I was just cleaning my gun.
And just holding a conversation with you.
Yeah.
My gun had nothing to do with you. I just happened to be doing that at the time.
Yes.
Or remember, I didn't exactly push you into the table. You tripped and fell.
You
and
tripped.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't do that. And so it's minimizing what they're saying and shifting the responsibility for the abusive behavior onto the person who did
Right.
it. It's your fault.
Right.
You fell, or you provoked me, or you...
And I think that's the classic one. You provoked me.
Yes.
That people get stuck with you. I must have done something to make you treat me that way, because otherwise I can't understand in my mind and in my way of thinking why you would abuse me unless it's something I'm doing. So it kind of works both ways.
Yes.
The abuser gets to make you think that, but for you to stay there and accept the abuse, you have to accept that thought, that it's something I'm doing to provoke you into abusing me.
And so one of the things I'd like to say to that is really think about it this way. I've heard people say it this way. If you're in an abusive situation where the person is hitting you and beating on you, and they say you cause it, or they just angry and they can't help it, think about it this way. You know, we all get angry out in public. Do they hit their boss?
Right.
Do they hit a police officer? Do they hit, you know, somebody else? No.
Do they hit the doctor if they give them a diagnosis
that
they
they
don't
don't
like?
like?
Right.
You know, and so it's, look at who else they're hitting. Nobody. They're just taking it out on you. And so it's not
That's a
that they're
good
getting
point.
angry and they can't help themselves. They help themselves when they're out in public. They just allow themselves to lose control whenever they're at home. So don't blame yourself. Don't accept that.
Very important.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the trap so many people fall into, blaming themselves. So how can we help them move from accepting the blame for behaviors that they did not cause, and how can we help the alleged perpetrator move from blaming and not accepting responsibility to it?
Well,
Accepting
the
responsibility.
person who's being angry and intimidating and isolating needs to accept responsibility for that behavior and to acknowledge that they are choosing to do that. They need to acknowledge their past use of violence, that they've done this, that it's a pattern in their life, and that it's something that they need to change. They need to admit that they're wrong, and they need to communicate openly and honestly about what's been going on in their relationship.
Right.
And the person who is on the receiving end of that, especially like if we talk about children or the elderly, these are people who are defenseless and really can't make much change in and of
Right.
themselves.
A lot of
So
times that's
it
the
really
case.
does require that the person who's being abusive have a change of behavior really for all of these
Right.
behaviors.
Exactly.
And one of the things that we hope you'll do is that if if you do see yourselves anywhere in here, that you recognize that it's not a healthy way of being. You may have seen your parents interact this way and think that's the way it's supposed to be, or it may feel like it's the right way to be, or you may not know any other way to be. But if you see yourself doing any of these behaviors to your spouse or to your children, then we really invite you to look at yourself and to see that, you know, most professionals and most other people label this as abusive.
Right.
And so we hope that you will be able to see it in that way, or at least as unhealthy.
Right.
See it as unhealthy and begin to make some changes.
Right. And when you're not sure about how to make those changes, then you talk to a professional and you get the help that you need, and they can guide you in making those changes. And I think, as I think about this, and I think about trying to get the perpetrator and the alleged victim to make those changes, I think one of the things that the abuser has to remember is, even though you're working toward change, your past behavior has become ingrained in the victim. And so if you drop something, that victim may jump or be startled. You just have to be mindful of what you used to do and be prepared if she says, "You're still scaring me," to continue to work toward changing it, because it doesn't just happen overnight.
No, we don't learn our bad habits overnight,
Right.
and we don't lose them overnight
Exactly.
either. It takes intentional commitment to make a change.
Right. Yeah, and I think it would be great too in recognizing, you know, when the abuser is making those changes, you don't just wait to point out the negative. If they're doing something really good and change, hey, this is the way we should be communicating. You actually stopped and listened to me. You didn't yell, you didn't scream, you didn't tear up my belongings, you didn't take away my phone, you actually stopped and listened to me. So,
Yeah, and so recognizing the positive changes that they're making are very important. And that's important all the time in our relationships, that we give people praise and thanks and appreciation
right.
for the good things that they do.
Exactly. And I think that's how relationships grow and flourish. And I think it's important that we let our audience know, if you are in that situation and you feel like you've tried these things and it's not working, there's always other options. You can always choose to leave. You don't ever have to remain in a relationship that's abusive. You just have to take the proper steps to move on.
And to do so in safety.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by the proper steps, you know.
Yes.
We have Irish, we have counseling agencies such as Irish. There are people out there to help, to get you to safety.
And if you're in an abusive situation and you want assistance, then you can call us and we will get you in touch with all of the agencies that can provide support for you. We can do that, but there's a domestic violence coalition here, and they have support groups, and they have advocates who can go to court with you. There are free legal services. There is a domestic violence a home where you can go and stay and get a plan in place for what you want to do next. The sheriff's office is very vigilant about watching out for you and for domestic violence situations.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of help in this parish, and we can be your first stop to help you make that change that is needed in a safe way.
Right. And I think that's very important. Our audience needs to know there are options. And just as concerned citizens, if we believe something is going on, we can always report it to the proper authority. If you feel like it's unsafe and you don't want to intervene, that's probably best. Your intervention can be picking up the phone and calling the police and saying, I think it's best you intervene. So there are options, and we just want our viewers to be aware of the options they have.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good topic once again. Really enjoyed it. So thanks to you, our viewers, for spending your time with us for this episode of Ascension Counseling Center's video newsletter. You can catch replays of the program exclusively on Ascension 21 on the days and times listed on your screen, and anytime on Ascension 21's YouTube channel. We hope today's information will help change your life for the better. That's our goal at Ascension Counseling Center, for our programs to help change lives. Remember, Ascension Counseling Center is here by way of your support. We're funded by a 2 mil property tax millage, which means that $2 from every $1,000 you pay in taxes goes to support our agency so we can provide free and low-cost mental health and substance abuse outpatient services to residents of Ascension. We're located in Gonzales at 1112 Southeast Ascension Complex Boulevard, off Worthy Road, just across from the courthouse and next to the health unit. You can reach us by calling 225-450-1016. You can also find us on the web at ascensionparish.net/MH and on Facebook at Ascension Counseling Center. You can also hear us on KKAY AM 1590 every Tuesday from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Thanks for your support, and until next time, from everyone at Ascension Counseling Center, thank you for watching.